السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله. الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله. حي على الصلاة. حي على الصلاة. حي على الفلاح. حي على الفلاح. الله أكبر الله أكبر. لا إله إلا الله. اللهم صل على
الحمد لله الذي أنزل على عبده الكتاب ولم يجعل له عوجا، والحمد لله الذي لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد، والحمد لله. نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه، ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له، ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلوات الله وسلام عليه. عباد الله، قال الله تعالى في كتابه المبين بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم: لقد خلقنا الإنسان في كبد. وبعد. One of the greatest gifts that every single person has the opportunity of benefiting from, of claiming as their own, is the gift of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in their life. That a person literally was used as a guide, not just for legal definitions, not for permissibility, impermissibility, not whether things are halal or haram, not whether they're, mubah or not, but that there is a person that is a walking textbook, somebody that illustrates, that models, not just if, but how to do something. And this is one unfortunate tragedy that we have in our community today, is that we've reduced the entirety of this beautiful faith and the example of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ into nothing more than a legal textbook. That the most we know or talk about the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ from an action perspective is whether or not we can do things based off of whether or not he did them. And although that is a foundational purpose of his existence, it undermines and it reduces and minimalizes his goal, not just to educate us, but to teach us how to be. And this is why when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He allowed the Prophet ﷺ to endure certain difficulties, there was wisdom in the Prophet ﷺ enduring these things. During one of the most difficult times of the Prophet ﷺ's life, there is a year that is known in the Sirah books as Am al-Huzn, the year of sadness, the year of grief. And the first question a person has to ask is, why on earth would God allow a person that He has chosen, a prophet, whose job is nothing more than to deliver the message to people, which is their life's legacy, their life's work? Why would God allow that person to be put into situations that tested them and stressed them? You know, many of you as parents, your children are in school, and you as parents do everything for your child or your children because in your mind you want to remove all difficulty from their life so that they can focus on their job. So you get them their car, their cell phone, you cook them their meals, you do their laundry, you do everything that they need so that they can focus on their job of studying and doing well in school. Even though, obviously, we know we have more than that as a job, but I'm just using an example. And the reason why you do that is because you love them. So if Allah loved His messenger, why would He allow him to have to do his work, but then also go through all the difficulty? Well, it's because in those difficulty, in those challenges, there are lessons for the Prophet ﷺ that would allow him to do his job even better than if he had not gone through them. And as believers, we are able to look at the example of the Prophet ﷺ when he experienced difficulty, and when you and I are going through a challenge or a test, we're able to connect to our messenger. That empathy becomes real. When you read stories of the Prophet ﷺ losing his children, and he's shedding tears, and then you, in America in 2017, in Dallas, Texas, you lose one of your loved ones and you shed tears, you can't help but think this is the pain the Prophet ﷺ felt. When the Prophet ﷺ is holding his son in his arms as he's gasping his last, and you go through a similar experience, then you know. When the Prophet ﷺ is put through financial difficulty and you get laid off, then you think of the Prophet ﷺ. Because there's no benefit in following a person that is nothing like you, because you wouldn't be able to connect to them. So Am al-Huzn, the year of grief and sadness, the first thing we have to know before we talk about it is we have to appreciate that it wasn't some academic exercise. It wasn't as though the Prophet ﷺ was being put through difficulty, but he was assured, okay, I know that this is all going to be great and this is just a temporary test. He was going through it as a human being for us, so that when you and I go through our moments of sadness, we can relate to his year of sadness. And in that year, there were a few things that happened to the Prophet ﷺ that shook him. The first is the loss of his wife Khadija radiallahu anha. And honestly, if we just said that in a statement, that the Prophet ﷺ's wife Khadija passed away radiallahu anha, it would be, and we just move forward, it would be the greatest disservice to our mother Khadija radiallahu anha. This is a person who, after her passing, when the Prophet ﷺ saw anything that reminded him of her, like whether it was a piece of her clothing or an article of her jewel, anything, he would begin to shed tears. He would become choked up. When Aisha radiallahu anha became a little bit jealous of Khadija and this love that the Prophet ﷺ had for her and this appreciation he had for her, Aisha referred to Khadija and she said to the Prophet ﷺ out of jealousy, why do you keep thinking about that old woman? Right? When Allah has given you a young wife like myself, why do you keep remembering this old woman? And the Prophet ﷺ became very upset. And he said, do not refer to her like that. He said, she appreciated me and believed in me and did for me and supported this deen when it wasn't easy, when no one else did. When the Prophet ﷺ used to see the friends of Khadija in Medina after her passing, he would send them gifts and food in her honor. This is the kind of love that the Prophet ﷺ had for her. She supported him financially. But more importantly, she supported him spiritually and emotionally. Radiyallahu anha, the first person to accept him after he received wahi, she passes away. If this were to happen alone in the year of the Prophet ﷺ, this would have been a challenge enough for him, alayhi salam. But the next thing that occurred added to this challenge, and that was the passing of his uncle Abu Talib. And it wasn't just the passing of his uncle, but it was the passing of this man, Abu Talib, this very noble, caring family member of the Prophet ﷺ, his passing, and he did not accept his nephew as a messenger. And that is really the wound that was salted for the Prophet ﷺ. The bitter taste, the sour taste that the Prophet ﷺ experienced was that he was standing at the deathbed of his uncle. And in this moment, he was pleading to his uncle, give me one statement, just give me something of belief that I can take on the day of judgment, and I can stand in your corner on your witness stand, and I can say that I testify for my uncle. And almost as if he could see it coming off of his lips, but just before he said it, the other Qurayshi tribe leaders, they mocked Abu Talib on his deathbed. Look at this ego, look at this nafs. They mocked him and they said, are you really going to do this? Are you going to give up the lifestyle you've been living your whole life? You're going to give it up now? Your forefathers, you're going to abandon them now? What weakness is this? And Abu Talib passed away not accepting his own nephew, who he loved. You know, Abu Talib, he had many children. And when he fed his children, they would all eat from the same plate. But he loved the Prophet ﷺ so much that he would actually put a plate aside in the different part of the room for the Prophet ﷺ so that he could enjoy his food by himself. This is how much he loved his nephew, Muhammad ﷺ. So these two things occurred, these two losses occurred in the life of the Prophet ﷺ that made his years so difficult. Think of all the tears that were shed. But now on top of this, just like if any of you have ever gone through any loss, you know that you have some time for grieving, some time to process, but eventually what is the reality is life. You have to go back to work. You have to go back to taking care of yourself and your family and your job. They'll give you some time to let you process and move forward, but eventually you need to go back to living and earning and taking care of your responsibilities. So the Prophet ﷺ, he had to go back to his job. He didn't get days off from being a messenger. Think of the pressure that was on him. So as he's processing the passing and the departure of his two loved ones, one of which was especially painful because she was his support, the other was especially painful because even though he supported him, he didn't accept him. The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ still has to find, as he turns behind him and sees his community, he has to find a place to call home. Because just as his family is dying, there are his companions who are also being tortured and some of them also being killed simply because they're following him. Now imagine the difficulty that he's feeling in his chest, the tightness he's feeling, knowing that these people are trusting me and I have to find safety for them. Because they're trusting me, they're suffering. So the Prophet ﷺ goes to a nearby city by the name of Ta'if. And many of us have heard this story before, but I promise you, this is an interesting take on it. Not unique, but just a reminder. That the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ goes to Ta'if and he basically spends, some narrations say he spent up to 7, 8, 9 days with them. And the Prophet ﷺ, Allah said about him and testified about him and stated, وَإِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. Your character is that which is above all of sublime character. Like, you are a perfect person when it comes to your manners, your etiquette. You never ever rub someone the wrong way. You are a beautiful individual. إِنَّكَ لَعَلَى خُلُقٍ عَظِيمٍ. You are on top of good character. You own it. Good character follows you because you're so beautiful as a person. So we can assume, if we take this ayah, that if the Prophet ﷺ had good character and he spent 9 days with people, that we can assume safely that he treated them very well. That he didn't say anything or do anything or act any way that would have deterred them or pushed them away. And this is one side note that I want to make about when we talk about Islam, when we talk about our religion, whether it's our children, our family, our co-workers, or the public, our neighbors. It is important to understand that the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was never disagreed with by how he spoke to people. People disagreed with him left and right based off of what he said. Believe in one God. No. Okay, they disagreed with him. But do you ever find a narration from the people who he was talking to saying, you know what? Your message, we could continue talking about it. It seems interesting, but I just can't talk to you because you're really harsh. You never see that about the Prophet ﷺ. But here today we have, in our community, we have to fix this within ourselves. We have a beautiful message, but unfortunately our character is lagging behind a little bit. So when we talk to people or converse with people, we enter into a very aggressive mode because we feel like we're being attacked. Islamophobia on the rise. But we need to have composure and beauty when we speak to people, because even though he was disagreed with about what he said, he was never disagreed with about how he said it. So the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he goes and spends time with them, beautiful character, wonderful interactions, and at the last day that he's with them, on the final day, he's requesting sanctuary. It's a group of refugees. And you think to yourself that surely they have some warmth and innocence in their heart, that they feel like, you know what, there's these 80, 90 people in Mecca, in our neighbor city, and they need somewhere to stay. So there are these 3 brothers who are the chiefs of the town, and they gather everybody in the town and they put the Prophet ﷺ right in the middle. And in front of everybody, they decide to not only reject the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, not only tell him no, because the Prophet ﷺ has been told no before, but to do it in a way that was so hurtful and trying to humiliate the noble messenger, ﷺ. They said things like, you're coming here begging for help from us? Aren't you a messenger of God? The next brother said, we don't even want you here. Get out of our town. The third one was basically like, I don't even want to look at you. Right? My 2 brothers have already handled it. Get out of here. This is the language they use with the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, showing you the depths of darkness in their heart. And so as the Prophet ﷺ is leaving Ta'if, he not only leaves, but those 3 brothers, out of their anger and out of their, their drama, they want to try to humiliate and hurt the Prophet ﷺ more. They tell everybody in the city to pick up rocks and stones and anything they can find that's hard. And they tell everybody, you see that man walking out with his young friend? Throw these at them. Throw them. I want you to hit them. And they hit the Prophet ﷺ time and time again. And every time one of the stones hit the Prophet ﷺ, whether it was his face or his back or his legs or his arms, people would cheer like it was a game. And the Prophet ﷺ bled so much that the narration says that his sandals actually became dyed. They changed color from the blood that dripped from his body onto the leather that he wore on his feet. What a year. First you lose your wife. Not just any wife, but Khadija radiallahu anha. Then you lose your uncle. And now this. Surely the Prophet ﷺ asks the same question that you and I ask. Why? Why me? What did I do to deserve this? He walks out to a nearby area, safety, bleeding, bruised, but not broken. And he goes to a tree and he sits. You know when you're just so tired and the best feeling in the world is getting off your feet. And he rests his back against the tree. He raises his hands, tears in his eyes, and he says, إِلَيْكَ أَشْكُو دُعْفَ قُوَّتِي. Oh Allah, I complain to you about my weakness, my lack of strength. And he asks Allah, إِلَى مَنْ تَكِلْنِي. Who are you placing in charge of me? Do you see what these people are doing to me? This is a very human reaction. This is showing the humanity of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. قُلْ إِنَّمَا أَنَا بَشَرٌ مِثْلُكُمْ. Allah Ta'ala told the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, even though you are the best of humanity, tell people, I am a human being just like you. This is where you and I can read this story and tears start to fall, because we remember the times when we were tested and we felt the same way. Ya Allah, what are you putting me through? What's the wisdom in this, Ya Allah? Show it to me. Show me the wisdom that you're doing with this. I want to see it. It'll make bearing this difficulty, it'll make it much easier for me. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he finishes his dua. It's a lengthy dua, you should read it. He finishes his dua by telling Allah, by informing his Lord, Ya Allah, as long as you're not upset with me, then none of this matters anyways. I'm going through challenges, I'm going through difficulty, but none of this matters. Now what did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what did he send the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam as a response? There's a couple interesting things that happened, one of which was that a person saw him, a man named Addas. He saw him, and he actually came and spoke to the Prophet ﷺ, and this man actually ended up accepting the Prophet ﷺ because of their connection, because Addas came from a place where there were prophets, Nineveh, where prophets came from, but where Prophet Yunus came from. But that's aside. We'll talk about that later. What did Allah Ta'ala send the Prophet ﷺ as a reinforcement? I want you to think, in this moment, what do you need as a person? You have no place to go, so you need a home. You're being abused and harassed, so you need protection. You need people to protect you. You have no finances, you're poor, so you need money. I mean, there's all these things. What's your list of things that you would ask for to Allah in those moments? And Allah sends him, very uniquely, the story of Surah Yusuf. This is the story that Allah Ta'ala sent. And the scholars, subhanAllah, they say that this is evidence, this is proof from the seerah that the first thing you turn to in difficulty is the Quran. It is shifa for the broken heart. It is curing for the soul that needs to be repaired. It's the thing that can mend the thing that is damaged. Allah Ta'ala sends Surah Yusuf, and in Surah Yusuf he gives his messenger, his Habib sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he gives him the entire story, from which we're going to talk about 3 parts and 3 lessons on how to deal with difficulty. The first thing that we learn from the story of Yusuf is an answer to one of the questions of the Prophet ﷺ. And that is that Yusuf is a young boy. And he has a dream in the surah, he has a dream and he tells his father about the dream. And what's interesting is that his father is also a prophet. So Yusuf ﷺ is going to become a prophet. And his father, Yaqub, is already a prophet. So he goes and speaks to his father. And he says, Dad, I had this dream. And he tells him, he's like, in this dream I saw the sun and the moon and the stars, and they were all bowing to me. They were all prostrating. رَأَيْتُهُمْ لِي سَاجِدِينَ. They were all bowing to me. What does it mean, Dad? And this is a little side lesson, that if you're a father and your kids don't feel like they can come talk to you about their dreams, let alone things that are happening in school or life or questions, then you have to reevaluate your relationship with your family. There are some young people that come to me and they ask me for advice, and the first question I ask them is, okay, what do your parents think about this? And their response is, oh no, I could never tell my parents. I want to get married. Okay, have you talked to your mom and dad? No. Why? Because they're setting me up with my cousin back in India, right? Or something like that. I've already been promised when I was 4 years old. Really? What's her name? I don't know, right? What's his name? No clue. He works in IT, okay? No offense. IT is a beautiful field. May Allah put barakah in our work. No offense with India, or if you've been married like that. The purpose is to illustrate that they feel like they can't even talk to their parents. It's not about the result. Allah put barakah in all of it. Ameen. But if it got there through some sort of passive-aggressive force, arm bending and twisting behind, it's not a good move. Yaqub is a prophet, i.e., he's more religious than any of us here, but he still has the time to talk to his kids. The most painful thing is when young people come to me and they say, I can't talk to my dad or mom. Why? Because they're going to call me munafiq. They're going to call me a sinner. They're not going to give me advice. They're just going to lay their judgment on me. One father came to me one time and said, my son's a munafiq. I said, did you name him that? Or why are you calling him that so confidently? And he goes, no. I said, okay, tell me why your son's a munafiq. Did he admit it? What? He says, no. He goes, the hadith is very clear. I said, thank you. Please continue to tell me about the hadith that is very clear. He said, the hardest salawat, the hardest prayers for the hypocrite to pray in jama'ah are Fajr and Isha prayer. And there's some commentary on it. One of the commentaries is beautiful. It says, because the hypocrite only does things to be noticed, and Fajr and Isha, it's dark outside. So when it's dark outside, you can't be noticed. And so that's why they find it difficult. There's no motivation. There's no, I'm going to be seen. People are going to say how religious I am. So I asked the guy, I said, this is the only reason that your son doesn't pray Fajr and Isha in the masjid? So now you're saying, khalas, qata'i, he's a munafiq, that's it, khalas? Abdullah bin Ubay's cousin or something? And he said, yeah, the hadith is clear. I said, let me ask you a question. How old is your son? He said, 15. He's baligh. He has to pray. I said, how old are you? He's like, 45. So when did you start praying Fajr and Isha in the masjid? I said, last year. I said, your son has 30 more years until you can say you're a munafiq. And even then you can't say it because Allah knows the best, right? Allah knows what's in the chests. The point being is, don't let religion become a reason why your kids feel like they can't talk to you. If your kids say, I can't talk to my dad or mom because they're going to drop some tafsir on me, or they're going to pull up Islam QA fatwa, or they're going to get Imam Nadim to yell at them, that's not a parent-child relationship. A parent-child relationship, yes, it includes education. Sure, it includes discipline. But all of those things are enveloped in love. So Yusuf a.s. goes to his father Yaqub and he says to his dad, Dad, I had this dream. And when he says, I had this dream, his father told him, don't tell anybody. And even though he listened to his father and didn't tell anybody, he still was tested. His brothers still, out of their jealousy, out of their envy, they devised a plan to get rid of their brother once and for all. And they said, we're going to kill this guy because our father loves him more than us. This is the first lesson from the Surah of Yusuf. Did Yusuf do anything wrong? No. In fact, one could argue that he did everything right. He was beloved to his father, and when he had a question, he approached his father and asked his father. But his brothers still could not stomach the fact that their father had a particular soft spot in his heart for him. And so he was tested by Allah. What's the lesson here? Everyone will be tested. No one's going to be safe from being tested. And the important lesson is that never ascribe one of your tests to a mistake that you did. This is one of the biggest things in our community that is so crippling. A man and a woman have trouble conceiving a child. They come to me and say, my mom asked me, what kind of sin did you do that Allah is upset with you that you can't have a kid? A man and a woman get divorced. A man or a woman, their child passes away early. And people in the community, the tongues of our elders sometimes, or young people, become so sharp. Oh, Allah must be really upset with you. You get a flat tire. What sin did you commit? Where were you coming from? Tell me the truth. Was it really the masjid? Yeah. You're not getting punished or tested because of something you did, because Allah Ta'ala tested all the prophets who He loved. And so if you're going to say that tests and trials are because Allah is upset with you, you're going to have a very difficult time explaining the life of the Prophet ﷺ, because he was tested more than any of us. And so when you're tested, Ibn al-Qayyim says that to know whether your test is a punishment or not is to look at how you respond to the test. If Allah Ta'ala tests you and you respond by going further away from Allah, then the punishment is in fact that you went further away. But if your response to the test is inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, like Allah says in the Quran, when they're tested or given a big trial, they respond inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un, and you become closer to Allah. You open your hands more and make dua, you give more sadaqah, you make tawbah, you ask Allah to forgive you, then Ibn al-Qayyim said that test actually was not a punishment at all. In fact, it was a sign of Allah's love for you. He's bringing you closer. He's bringing you closer. So Yusuf alayhi salam is tested. The number one lesson, we will all be tested. Just a quick logistical question. My clock says 1:30. Those clocks say 1:25. Which one do I go by? 1:30? Okay, so we're done inshallah. So we'll conclude inshallah this first khutbah and we'll wrap up the second khutbah shortly. I don't want to take up too much of your time. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين والمسلمات فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. If you could please scoot up, please. Jazakumullah khairan. Make some room. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. To conclude this khutbah, because now I realize that I've already gone over time, understand this lesson from the life of the Prophet Muhammad صلى الله عليه وسلم, that him being tested was not an indication of Allah's anger or displeasure. In fact, it was an indication that Allah was bringing him closer. And the reason why we are tested in this life as followers of the Messenger is that Allah wants to see if we can لِنَبَلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا, which one of us in our response to the test will have such beautiful actions and responses that we will be elevated to the status of prophets. Now, how do we respond to the test? I'll give you one thing to think about. I had three, but I'll give you one because of the time. One time the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he was walking and he saw a woman who was crying. And she was shedding tears at the grave. One of the narrations says it was her husband, another one says it was her brother. But either way, one of her relatives, one of her male relatives had passed away, and she was at the grave and she was crying. So the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, he approaches her and he was going to console her. He was going to console her and tell her, be patient, it's okay, Allah Ta'ala will be with you. And he basically told her that, remember Allah in these situations and it'll help you. It'll help you. Won't be immediate, but through having taqwa, having sabr, it'll help you. Her response was that she looked, not towards the Prophet ﷺ, but she responded to him by saying, "Get away from me." And she basically said to him, in summary, "You have no idea what I've gone through." Now the Prophet ﷺ, we just said, he lost his wife, he lost his uncle, he lost his father before he was even born, he lost his mother shortly after he was born. Throughout his life, he lost his children, he lost his friends. Do you think he has any idea what she's going through? I think so. But the Prophet ﷺ does not say, "Excuse me, do you know who you're talking to?" He doesn't say, "Oh, let's compare. You lost one, I lost this many." He doesn't do any of that because he knows that when people are feeling pain, it's not about logic. It's not about logic, it's about emotion. So he walks away, ﷺ. Later on, someone tells that woman, they say, you yelled at the Prophet ﷺ pretty bad. And she becomes stunned. She had no idea who she was talking to. So she goes to the Prophet ﷺ and she says, "Ya Rasulullah, I just want to come and apologize." And right away he says, "It's no big deal. Don't worry about it. I forgive you. It's not a problem. But let me teach you something." He says, "Inna sabra inda sidmat al-ula." He said that patience is at the immediate event of the calamity. That when the trial happens, all of us can be patient 2 years later. All of us can look back and say, "You know what? I'm patient. I'm dealing with it." How many of us can respond when it instantly happens with that patience? Because the heart responds quickly with what's truly inside of it. So remember this lesson. As you're being tested, don't let patience come to you slowly. Let your response be patience and trust in Allah with strength. Know that there is something there. know that there's an ultimate plan and that Allah will deliver us through it. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us patient. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us the ability to go through tests and trials with beauty, like Yaqub alayhi salam. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to not test us more than we can bear. We ask Allah to allow us to pass all of our tests and tribulations. We ask Allah to forgive us for any mistakes that we've made as we are being tested or in times of prosperity. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to keep us on the straight path, to unite our families, to allow us to love Allah and be loved by Allah, and to follow the Messenger ﷺ on the straight path to Al-Jannat al-A'la, al-Firdaus al-A'la. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to forgive all those who have passed away. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to cure all those who are sick. We ask Allah to give prosperity and barakah to the wealth of all of the Muslims who are working hard to make a living. We ask Allah to give success and tawfiq to all the students who are studying in their exams. We ask Allah to give beauty in all of the homes, to all the families. Ameen ya Rabbil Alameen. Inna Allah wa malaikatahu yusalluna ala nabi. Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu sallu alayhi wa sallimu taslima. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad. Kama sallaita ala Ibrahim wa ala ali Ibrahim fil alameen. Innaka hamidun majid. اللهم بارك على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما باركت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد. إن الله يأمر بالعدل والإحسان وإيتاء ذي القربى وينهى عن الفحشاء والمنكر والبغي يعظكم لعلكم تذكرون. أقم الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة. الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله.
La ilaha illallah. Please straighten your rows, inshallah, fill in the gaps, and perform this prayer as if it's your final prayer. Allahu Akbar. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. ويتجنبها الأشقى الذي يصلى النار الكبرى ثم لا يموت فيها ولا يحيا قد أفلح من تزكى وذكر اسم ربه فصلى بل تؤثرون الحياة الدنيا والآخرة خير وأبقى إن هذا لفي الصحف الأولى صحف إبراهيم وموسى. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. استغفر الله استغفر الله استغفر الله. الله
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jazakallah khair. Ustad AbdelRahman Murphy, mashallah, very inspiring khutbah. We take it so granted that deen came to us so easily, but looking, to that life of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, mashallah, what he been through to bring this deen to us, that what we have it, we take it granted. Jazakallah khair, Ustad. On your way out, inshallah, donate generously to the Masjid operation. If you have not taken the responsibility to sign up for the Epic newsletters, we have all our announcements. Friday announcements are on our Epic newsletter. Go to our website and please sign up for the newsletters. We have many programs that run by our Imam and Ustad in-house here. You can check out on the newsletter, inshallah. Tonight we have a fundraising for the Pure Hand for the needy people in Yemen at Crystal Hall at 5 p.m. Also, there's an opportunity for the ICNA food pantry. They have started a tutoring services for the refugee students. So if you're a college student or in any capacity, if you have some bandwidth to help, please reach out to ICNA food pantry. Their numbers are in our flyers. Also, we're going to have, inshallah, coming Monday, an update with our constructions and the finances. We're going to ask our previous board, Amir, Junaid Bhai, and Badr Abdullah Shiga to present something if you can, inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.